All right, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, your favorite villain, and I'm here with my lawyer, GB. Go ahead.
Yo,
Big news. First of all, happy Thanksgiving to everybody that celebrates it. Um, but we hit 50 plus members actually on Thanksgiving, so that's pretty dope. If you want to check out the membership, come hang out with me and Chuck at events and streams. Hang out with GB, learn how to be a lawyer. Uh, Definitely check it out and comment down below. But anyways, GB's been bugging me for a really long time about X of Swords. He hates X-Men, but he thought this run was godly. Finally got around to reading it, and we've decided to do a discussion. So, with that being said, we're gonna actually rate the series in our opinion, and we have a scale we did of 1 to 10, kind of just to show what we favor when it comes to good story arcs. And so, GB, you want to go ahead and read like what we consider GOAT tier number 10?
yeah, GOAT tier. So for me, I would consider Invincible. Uh, that would be GOAT tier for me. For Splash, he would consider it to be Alias. I've never read that. Don't know what it is, but
Yo,
Splash can go into it.
look, it's a sleeper pick for the culture. It's the Jessica Jones story. It's a Max story. And for what it is, which is not a lot of action, and I prefer action, it's amazingly written. It's just well done. I'm big on character development and stuff. So that's where we are when it comes to what we consider great comics. Number nine, like a nine, I believe is Miracle Man. Miracle Man would have been a 10 if Alan Moore had continued the series, but he passed it off. So I think he passed it off to Neil Gaiman. So it didn't finish as strong. It didn't have the same air to it because it was a different author. So it ended up coming a little bit short, but it's still really good. And for GB, I'll let him explain why he thinks the Maker arc's goaded.
Because Sue Storm is a slag, and Reed got tired of putting up with her. So he put the respect down in the household and let him know. That's why it's a goated story. Honestly, it should be 10. I was trying to be modest and I put it at 9.
Yeah, it's definitely an inspirational story. How to turn it around on your bullies, take over the multiverse.
Yeah, sleeping with Namor was really working out for Sue until it wasn't. Until all of a sudden people were dead.
All right, moving on to number 8. This is 8 on our scale. I put Watchmen, and you put Justice League Odyssey, right?
Yeah.
What do you think makes something like Odyssey a good story?
They just made characters that really weren't getting shine at all before. They gave them some shine. Starfire, Cyborg, Azrael. Azrael for real, because he hasn't gotten shine since like the 90s. Um, Darkseid got some respect again because recently in comics he was kind of just jobbing around everywhere. Uh, but yeah, it did pretty good. It saved face from the Perpetua stuff too because man, the Perpetua stuff was a mess. Like that scaling was just ruining DC.
Yeah, that's facts. Watchmen for me, I thought that's a 8 because Rorschach was great. Has one of the best lines in comic book history with, I'm not stuck in here with you, you're locked in here with me. Um, it had great characters, but at some points it got too lengthy, too much filler almost, and I wanted to skip a lot. So that's why it wasn't as high on my. I know a lot of people would say it's a 9 or a 10, but for me, it's a 8. Um, for a 7, You want to go ahead and say which ones we picked?
Yeah, for Splash, I believe you picked the Gore arc from God of Thunder Thor, and for me, it was Avengers versus X Men. If you want to go into why for either one, can.
Yeah. For me, Gore, it was good. It was fun. It's a fun read for sure. It definitely made Thor look badass, but besides that, I didn't think Gore was that interesting. I really didn't. The storyline wasn't that compelling. It was kind of like a typical, oh, if we don't stop this bomb from going off, it's damnation. Like it's just nothing new, nothing that exciting. A lot of people love Gore, which is fine. I'm just not a big Gore fan, and overall, I did like it, and I did think it was fun, but I didn't think it was great. I just thought it was really good. What do you think
Yeah.
of AVX?
Um, ABX was just fan service. It was just a bunch of versus matchups. The story was okay, but realistically, it lacked in a lot of. It had X Men, and X Men is really good because of politics. AVX lacked heavily in like what makes X Men good, which is like political kind of avenue stories. And then it had the Avengers, and Avengers are really in a big threat scenario, but there isn't a threat here. It's just a dispute on. I don't. I honestly, it's not even really a dispute. These dudes are just beefing, and they just want to fight. And like,
They're
some of the
taking a
fights are less
kid.
personal
I
than
think it was
others.
Hope, right? Oh,
Yeah, yeah. Like they wanted to take in Hope because supposedly she was hosting the Phoenix Force, or she was eligible, and everybody suspected that it was going to her. Um, it wasn't really that big of a deal. And in the end, she gets it, and then nothing happens, and then it goes to Scott, and then he starts killing everybody, and it was just fan service. It was like, look at what everybody would do with the Phoenix Force. Like that's basically it, and nothing really came of it either. It was just we never really saw Captain America versus Scott again, and I don't know. It was just whatever.
yeah. It's not bad. It's just I don't go back and read it for fun or anything. Moving on to 6, we're approaching Jobber tier. I would say this probably is Jobber tier. Final Crisis for me, I just didn't really like. If Blue Beetle is a catalyst for your story, that's a rough start, dog. Like it just didn't really capture my attention at the start. Shooting Dark, I don't care how you try to justify it. Batman shooting Darkseid was stupid. It's supposed to be deep, but it wasn't. Um, Bunch of stuff gets changed later. Like it was just, it's kind of a waste of time. It's just what a bunch of people try to use to talk about platonic concepts being outer in DC. But besides that, like, it's not that good of a story.
Yeah,
What do you
yeah. It's
think?
not that.
What's
It's not
your
that
what's
good.
your beef with like we acknowledge like Final Crisis did it was a big deal and it was like a major event. So of course, it's a little bit above average, but I definitely think it's a jobber scenario. And you picked a Marvel one in its Secret Invasions.
Yeah, that should like. First of all, the scroll race is a bunch of jobbers. So how they got that off is crazy. Like nobody had X-ray vision. Nobody could smell like what scrolls smell like. Nobody could sense that. Apparently, nobody has precog anymore. Um, apparently, everything that stops things like that from normally happening. Like you read Avenger stories. Doctor Strange has premonitions of big events. He sees Dormammu. He sees Shumagor. At some you read Fantastic Four stories. They see premonitions of Galactus. Spider-Man, the same thing. Um, and X-Men, Galactus, or Apocalypse. Everybody always has, and then all of a sudden the Skrull invasion pops off. These guys go completely under the radar. It's the goofiest story because they all end up losing in the worst way possible. They had years of prep, and stories like that just are a waste of time. Like I feel like they're a waste of time. I'm never gonna go back and read that. And if there's another story that repeats the same concept, I'm never gonna read it. It's boring. It's terrible.
No, at 5, the ultimate jobber tier. We had to. Silver Surfer's career. His entire
Yeah, there's nothing.
catalog.
Yeah, there's no stories where surfers in it, and I'm like, yo, you remember that surfer story? As a matter of fact, I've never heard for as many people that ride for surfer, I've never heard them bring up one surfer story that's good. Like they're quick to say Surfer beats Superman, but they don't want to talk about like any arcs or anything that like he was the actual catalyst or main character of. That was dope. Like it's garbage.
Yeah, it's just jobber. He's had moments, he's had good fights, but like besides that, I like when I was going back researching surfer stuff, I was like, these stories are kind of drag. So and everybody knows he's not a good character anyway. So he definitely jobber. I mean, he's lucky we gave him number 5, and this shows we're actually being nice because number 4 I put for number 4 Iron Fist solo runs. Um, Modern ones, they're okay. Um, it's just nothing really comes of it. Nothing ever really matters. Um, when I say that, I mean like grand scheme of things. The characters don't do that much for me. Um, I love Iron Fist as a character, but his latest runs, I haven't really been a fan of. Um, I think GB agrees with me on that.
Yeah, I couldn't really think of anything I would put at four, that I had like a personal issue with or anything like that. I already got all my gripes out. Honestly, like to me, when you're making a top 10 list, everything stops mattering after like once you do your 10, like your super high class, and then you do your 9. If you start to like fiddle around 8, everything else just doesn't matter after that. So like once I put my eighth slot in, that was like a lock in 8. After that, I just didn't. It was like whatever. Everything after that was just hate. It was just like all these stories are
Facts.
trash.
So to just get it out the way, we put Iron Fist solo run from more recent times. Joker solo arc. Uh, Winter Soldier's solo arc when he was like an intergalactic assassin. I couldn't even get through the first chapter, and then Donny Cates' recent runs. Um, and most likely all of them. But to be fair, I don't think I've read all of them. So, with that being said, with y'all knowing how we kind of scale these, and we will be using this as our like go to for when we do other discussions on story arcs. We're gonna go ahead and give our opinion on what X of Swords was. I'm gonna let GB go first. Give your rating and explain just why this story arc was at rating for you.
All right, so being fair, I want to give it like a 9 because I just think it's really good. I'd recommend this to anybody who just likes comics. Um, there's a lot of storytelling, world building, character development, exploration of what characters can do, their abilities, lore change. There's actual retcons, but the retcons are comfortable. They're not awkward. They're not out of place. It's just an all around good story. But me being the person I am and the history I have with X Men, because man, do I've hated X Men for so long because their stories like I've never read a comic series where there's so many timeline altering events that don't matter in 616. Like the X Men have altered timelines so much, and it's it's like when you read Avengers, like you forget about that. You forget that like these events shaped like Avenger comics and things like that because like ultimately after like a few issues it just does the impact is gone. It doesn't stick. But in this comic, In this arc, I should say, you feel it because it's there, it's present. Hickman's doing a great job of establishing that the mutants are now existing on Krakoa. They're separated, quote unquote, from the 616 world in itself because the mutants now have their own domain, their own sanctuary. So now it makes sense that even though the mutants are going through these major events, that they're not affecting the normal everyday Avenger world because it's their own little sanctuary. It's their own little thing. They have their own dimensions and all this stuff that go on the planet that's interesting. Um, and these are the worlds they explore. So Hickman's done a good job of like fixing the issue I had with it, and then he's also made characters that I just never cared about interesting, like Apocalypse. Apocalypse to me was always a jobber. Like this dude shows up, he's OD, he has prep, and then he's always losing, getting boloed and ripped apart by Magneto. Like it's crazy. Like you're supposed to be the grandfather, super dad of all mutants, and you're out here getting boloed by everybody under the sun. Cable, Cyclops blasted through his barrier at like 10% power. Like it is just crazy. So he really turned my. Oh, he even made me like Wolverine. That was the craziest thing. Like he made me like Wolverine. I like Wolverine's such a generic character. Like I've never liked Wolverine. So once I realized that he was making me connect to characters I absolutely had no connection to before, I realized how good the writing was. Um, so objectively, as somebody who went into this not expecting a lot and really only liking Cyclops as a character, I came away with a newfound respect for characters like Wolverine, Apocalypse, Jean Grey. Professor X is on his Maker stuff. That was another thing that helped me through the comic. I
Emma
felt like a lot of
Frost.
inspiration. Yeah, Emma Frost had bars. Characters like that I've never seen before personally. Saturnine, I think is her name. She was dope. Um, yeah, and the new characters like the Summoners. There's a lot of stuff we're gonna get into, but for me, it was just that. It was him just like storytelling, world building, and then him converting me over to more X Men characters and making me like more X Men characters.
Yeah, for me, I would give it an 8 right now. I have to finish the tie-ins, which will probably sway me, so I'll weigh in later if I do change my mind, but that's about Watchmen level. It was really good to me. Definitely was excited with um Apocalypse being out of Versal. That's tough. Um got a bunch of good scaling. Hickman always delivers. Let's be honest. Hickman's one of the most consistent comic book writers in history. Um, Especially in Marvel, he's been hitting a lot recently, and he set it up in so. A lot of times, to me, if you're going for a tournament type thing in a comic book, a lot of times it comes off corny or cheesy, like because it's so generic. But Hickman somehow made that like dope. Um,
Yeah,
like the only thing I could think of that's similar to that would be like Kengan. Kengan makes it dope too. This was the like Wolverine's matchup. Um, I'm not gonna spoil anything for y'all, but his matchup, man, like just everything they went through. Each round mattered. He first of all, I dock him a point for what he did to Banshee, and what he did
oh
to
yeah, he disrespected Banshee.
in Unis. Yeah, the man who can't be touched got touched immediately. Banshee got boloed. Um, I got mad when they sent Nightcrawler to do recon because he always gets caught, and he got caught immediately. Little things like that, but besides that, it is a good story. Definitely very interesting to see the likes of Professor X, Magneto, Apocalypse, all of them on the same page. Because you're like, man, they're actually pretty OD if they want to be.
Yeah, yeah,
And it impacts a lot. If you want to go ahead, GB has a few theories, like a few spinoffs, and we'll probably finish with that. Go at, like, this is what Hickman's great at, is setting stuff up. What do you think he we could get out of this? That's what also makes it a great story, is the potential afterward. So what do you think we could get out of this?
So, for one, it's Hickman makes it very clear that this new utopia for mutants is is threatened by the human race because the humans are not keen on mutants actually being a recognized governmented nation. Um, with that being said, there's a tax launch, there's a lot of espionage, spying, things like that going on. So you have like really, some Splinter Cell type stuff going on, and there's a lot you can do with that, especially once you get into Cyclops and how passionate Cyclops is about mutants um, being respected in the world, alongside Magneto, who helped develop Cyclops to be the character he is now. And with Magneto writing at the council table alongside this new Charles Xavier we have, without giving away too much, it's really going to be interesting to see what this, you know, we could get another Avengers versus X-Men, but if it's written by Hickman the way he's writing currently, it could be something that's really good, especially after Secret Wars 2, which was also written by Hickman, and this story could be really interesting. Then you have obviously the Council of Mutants, which is also being shared with Mr. Sinister. Everybody knows Sinister is a villain, and unironically, most of the councilmen are actual villains, like Apocalypse and stuff, or former villains. So it's going to be interesting to see because Mr. Sinister has obviously been doing Mr. Sinister stuff, and he's been working on the shadows, trying to get his own DNA samples from other mutants from these other dimensions. And he's been working in the shadows, and now that certain people have left the council, certain good people have left the council, it leaves room for more villains to fill. So, and it also seems like there's mutants like Magneto on the council who are aware that some of these other guys, some of these other councilmen are shady. They just can't say anything because they're not trying to start a new utopia and discriminate against people's past and stuff like that. But giving people a new footing in the world and then knowing what they're capable of, so it's kind of shady even still. With that being said, it's interesting to see what Mr. Sinister is going to do. Also, Apocalypse said he's going to come back. Um, and with that, with like obviously if Apocalypse comes back, it's going to be for a big story. So there's a lot of things like Hickman really planted the seed for that he can move on forward with, and I'm all in for it. Like I'm ready to see where this goes, and I'm hoping that there's news on the next run and what the next arc's going to be, because this was a really good story. The tie-ins were good. Yeah, everything was good.
Yeah, I'm just waiting on the Banshee redemption arc, and then when I get that, we'll be good. But I definitely do. I'm looking forward to finishing the tie-ins, and if y'all want me to scale this run, because it did change a lot of the scaling, let me know. But yeah, I gave it an 8 out of 10. GB gave it a 9 out of 10. Borderline 10. We definitely recommend it. Um, Stay tuned, guys. I got Star Wars versus DC dropping tomorrow. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you, GB, for stopping by. And we'll see y'all later.